Hi, this is Tolec for the Andromeda Council. Today is Friday, March 2nd, 2018, and I'd like to thank you all for joining me for this 2018 Women's Light Language Roundtable conversation. I'm blessed today to have with me Chikara Tosha and Lightstar, both in the Sedona area, Jan DeSanti out in Colorado, and if she calls in later on, we will be blessed to have Sophie Diamond. So ladies, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to, rather than try to be all-encompassing with my introduction about each one of you, because although you are each accomplished light language practitioners, you use this gift and this ability, each of you in a different way. So I'm going to first allow Chikara Tosha to introduce herself and tell you, the listening audience, what she does and how she does it in her own multidiscipline approach, and then we'll let Lightstar tell her story. So Chikara, go ahead. Thank you.
Sounds great. Tolec, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really want to just thank you so much for all the support that you are encouraging other people to get these messages out. So that's really wonderful, really appreciated. And I just want to honor all the other women on this call. It's just really beautiful to be with our collective sisterhood and brotherhood out there to share these messages of light language. So I'll just give you a little bit about my background and how this works, how this whole thing works for me, which is pretty interesting. So my star name I was given by the star people recently, a few months ago, Chikara Tosha. And they told me that this was a new light energy of the Shekinah, or the Shakti, that's coming in to the world today. And the Tosha in Lakota means violet. So I also work with a violet flame. And it's just wonderful to see how many, just so many disciplines and so much star ways and earth ways and mastery ways are coming together. So we're all really evolving into our true missionhood, if you will, of what we're doing here. So I want to mention also, I was given the spirit name Wichake Tosha Washtewi, which I usually start with, from my soul brother, Chief Golden Light Eagle, who's a Lakota chief from the Yankton Sioux Reservation. I actually worked with him for the last 5 years doing star messages and lots of works with symbols. And that name is Beautiful Violet Star Woman, because I work with the Starways. So basically, I've been an artist all my life, and all the time I was drawing glyphs and scripts and things in my paintings. It just kind of came really naturally. And the story I like to share is when I was about 3 years old, my aunt got a teepee from New Mexico, and I would go in that teepee and I'd see star people. And they would come in physical form and etheric form, and they would mind speak to me and all that. And earth elemental people and trees and stones and all these animal spirits and star energies, especially Arcturian, were coming to me at a really early age. And so I just kind of transcended all this, I guess, downloaded knowledge and experience into my work as I got older, and started writing books and books and books of this galactic script that I had no idea about. It was just kind of freestyle. And there were many languages, but fortunately I had a mom who was an artist who just said, just go with it and have fun, you know, paint about it or draw about it or dance it or make music. So I really grew up in a very supportive environment that really encouraged that. And then fast forward, I moved to New York City. We were just talking about this. I was working in the corporate world, so I became a web producer. So I designed and coded websites, which is pretty multidimensional itself. And then worked in lots of different industries, publishing, finance, the art world, startup companies, and communications that had a lot to do with communication, language, symbolism, and you know, messages in different ways. So really interesting, but became a project manager and event coordinator stuff, but I was always doing this kind of star script and work. And then I joined Chief when he did the Star Knowledge Conference about 5 years ago, and started, my speaking of light language got activated by a grandmother sharing a message, and I just said, I really want to speak. I don't know what I want to say, but later I met with her, and I just said I really need to express this, and I started speaking one language after another, and I was just...
Was this Grandmother Silverstar?
Yeah, no, it was Grandma Mary Lightweaver.
Ah, okay,
so,
alrighty.
And there was another woman at that conference that was speaking Arcturian, and so there were a lot of kind of a handful of lots of different people there. So very quickly, so I all this came out, and there was Grandma Chandra, who I also work with Chief Gold Light Eagle, was there a couple months later, and she started naming off the languages that I was speaking. She said, "This is Arcturian, this is Orion, this is from the 66th dimension, this is another, ancient North Pacific ancient language." And so, this just came in really, really quick. So I started putting two together, and ended up moving out to the Midwest and working with this chief for about 5 years, because he downloaded these 11, 11, 12, 12, and 13, 13 star symbols that you can find online at Star Knowledge Conferences. StarKnowledgeEnterprises.com if you want to learn more about those symbols. So they really activated this understanding of all these starways with me. And then fast forward to a couple of years ago, I started going online and getting very curious about light language. I had heard that buzzword that's now like the hot topic, or the new black, and
Sure.
Was really interesting, and I found a lot of people, especially through Mary Rodwell, who I love in Australia, a lot of her clients would have ET experiences and draw a script or speak a spontaneous language or something. But I think what's interesting to me is, for me, and I know Lightstar speaks multi-languages and art and everything, so this came in really multidimensionally for me. And just a couple other things real quick is I started incorporating these in these presentations, and with a slideshow and that kind of thing. I'm working on books and a lot of material to get this out in different ways. But the key with a lot of this, especially for me, and I think with light language in general, is it's really about the multidimensional aspect. So I love working in all these different art forms, and it just kind of flows that way. But the last thing I want to say is about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, the star people started coming to me in dream time. And I would be in bed, half asleep, in my dream, and they would start mind speaking and give me these huge downloads every single day and they would wake me up on time codes, 333, 444, 555.
Right,
sometimes
of course.
222, right?
Yeah.
Hello. And for those of you that do that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I would be half awake. I would see these huge packets of information coming in about like 150 different topics.
Jeez.
And all these guides started coming to me, not just Arcturians are really the biggest ones, but many different star nations, identifying who they were, what they're doing, and helping me explain so that I could share it with other people. But I started getting Hathors and Isis and the tree people and the water people, and just Sasquatch is a huge guide that I work with who are also star people. I'd love to share a little bit about that later. But all these messages came like 5 or 6 hours every single day. So I've amassed this incredible amount of material. I'm trying to figure out how to release and share. But it is so beautiful because I'm seeing that each of these guides talk about each of these topics from a different perspective. So I'm sort of got the big download in this grid, and I'm trying to figure out how to put it out there. But I just love seeing people evolving with this language, and it's spontaneously, as I'm starting to speak light language in these gatherings, people are coming up to me, and they're getting activated right now. So the theme with most of the stuff is just about this ascension time, what's going on with our body systems, how to manage this, but much bigger, like creating new blueprints for this new world that we're moving into. So anyway, it's quite exciting and evolving every moment for me, and I love listening to and hearing how other people are experiencing this. So that's a little bit about what I wanted to share, and I'd love to share a little bit more.
Great, thank you. Light Star. Please,
Yes.
go ahead and chime in here.
Yay! Thank you so much. Again, reiterating everything Chikara was saying about you having us on here and allowing me open the floor for us to express and to share what we have learned as well along this path. And thank you, Chikara, for sharing that beautiful, amazing story of yours. We share some of the similarities as well. So. But I'd say kind of the difference in my path would be I did not necessarily grow up super open with this. It's not like I was a very empathic child, but and intuitive, but I didn't know it. And there wasn't really support system around me with family that could help to identify or allow me to express because they didn't know themselves either. So you can't really blame them. It's just nobody really knew anything. And yet I grew up with a lot of things coming in, bombarding me. I'm very sensitive. And so the intuitive empath in me started to just sort of, what they call just suck in all of the energies around me. Family, highs, lows, everything. I was just kind of taking everything in, and it got very overwhelming, I think, to my system. So part of me was a little bit unaware of all of this that was happening. But I will say that when I was about 9 years old, I was actually speaking a light language. I just did not know it was a light language at the time. Was unaware of it, but knew it wasn't something like a language we had here on Earth. And so I just sort of stuffed that off into the side, into a little box, and just moved on with life. And I was actually, it's funny because I'm an artist now, but I wasn't an artist when I was a kid. So that's something that came out much later, or when it was ready to be awakened and activated within me, because I actually grew up in more of the corporate world to begin with. So right out of college, I was kind of thrown into, got to get a job and go out there and work. And so I ended up working in also multi-different types of companies, whether it be software or marketing. But I ended out in Colorado actually for about 15 years. And I was in a very corporate environment, working in an environmental construction and restoration company. Had nothing to do with any of this spiritual work, nor was I even involved in it at that time. So I'd say what really happened is after my 15 years there, I began to feel like there was something that needed to change. There was something awakening. And was ready to open up and shift into something else. I didn't know what that something else was, but I went off onto the little, journey to discover that, and ended up leaving Colorado, deciding I wanted to go elsewhere, and ended up here in Sedona, actually by accident. Personally, it wasn't an accident, but when I came to Sedona, everything started to open up. I started to have all of my gifts started to really just awaken and come to the forefront. And it happened quite suddenly. And so it was very overwhelming. I started to get many of the languages coming through, either in dream time, in the shower, times when I was like trying to sleep, so I can identify with the disruption Chikara was talking about, waking up at, these different times and just like trying to get rest and sleep when you're like, no, here we go. And so I would be getting all these languages and these downloads. And there was a time where I was getting a little overwhelmed, and I said, I need to integrate for a while. So I took a 2-year period to just integrate. And so that I could start to identify and integrate them and have them be much more easily assimilated in my physical structure and in my energy field. So that's when I started to also awaken to my art gifts. Like I said, I didn't do this as a child. So I was doing marketing and graphic design in some of my corporate work. But it was very basic, and it was graphics for environmental construction, and very boring, and very the banking industry and the insurance industry. It's very straight-laced. There's no real creativity there.
Nope.
So they try, but I actually brought some of the creativity into that market where there was none. when I worked for a forensic engineering company, and they were actually very open-minded, considering, you know, the company, that they were thinking of me as somewhat unusual, but also very unique, and they learned a lot of this sort of like thinking out of the box and creative stuff. So I think that was, so that's really what happened with my awakening happening in Sedona and opening up to my art gifts, and started to go into my own artwork, which then also was incorporating the light language codes. And the light language codes really are starting to come through, the symbols, and now I'm actually doing custom symbols for people, specifically seeing things that are coming into their energy field, and actually like a download, and then just being able to draw that and have that activate them. Okay. So it's sort of offshooting into a lot of different areas in my life, but basically, yeah, that's how my foray into light language and artwork and everything else started.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jan DeSanti, currently in Colorado.
Yes, indeed. And Tolec, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited about light language right now. And just hearing everyone's stories are so inspiring. And my approach to this, or perhaps my story, is kind of like, I'm like a regular kind of just person. It's awakening, you know, I'm not a professional esoteric person or anything like that. So I hope the listeners...
I can't hear you on that line. Is this Tolec? This is Sophia Sohart. I just want to make sure that you can see me on the screen.
Okay. Sophia, this is Jan. Can you hear me? She can't hear me. Look, yeah.
Did Sophia just popped in?
Yes, yeah, she did. Yes. Should I keep going, or?
Yeah, go ahead and continue your introduction, and Sophie will have you introduce yourself to the listening audience after Jan finishes her own intro. So Jan, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So let's see. I was just going to say that my awakening just continues to be layer after layer after layer. And when I was a young girl, my father was in the military, so we traveled around the world, and so that was a great kind of exposure to my learning process. But my mother's family was very religious, and so I was around Baptists and Pentecostals and things like that. And sometimes I would be in services and people would speak in tongues. And it was accompanied by a lot of scary behavior to me. And so my opinion of the whole tongues thing was, no, 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 no. I do not like that. I want nothing to do with that. No way. Now, it was kind of like, wow, that is crazy. And that's not, you know, but no. But in my heart, I had this huge desire to figure out the truth of things, of life. Why am I here? Even as a little kid, I was a very serious little kid. I was the oldest of 3 kids, and I was just like an old soul from the beginning. Oh. And maybe a lot of the listeners can relate to that. And then when I went to college, so I'd been dabbling in all kinds of things, but then when I went to college, I got exposed to a group called the Way Ministry, and they were a Bible-focused Jesus movement group that was really into all the manifestations of the Spirit. And I said, oh, these people are so powerful and excited. Maybe they've got something. So I went and joined up with them and took a class. And at the end of the class, they lead everyone in the class into speaking in tongues. So I did, and I had this, I mean, I really wanted it, but I was scared to death of it. But all the people were calm. I mean, they weren't crying and weeping and falling on the floor. They were very, they were dignified, and they were kind of sitting there and just speaking in these languages. So I said, that's cool. I think I like that. And then when I had my experience, I was, I think I was just barely 19. My pineal gland just exploded. And at the time, I didn't really recognize it, but now, looking back, I can see the fireworks that went off in my head, in my energy body, was just unbelievable. And it was very emotional and liberating and activating. So I was very deeply involved with my husband in that group for 15 years or so. And just really, but then corruption kind of set in and we became unhappy with the group and we kind of walked away. And then I, after having 3 children, went back to college, got a career, just living the life, learn the system, live the life, pay your rent and so forth and get along. But I just had layer after layer of spiritual awakening around. I met people who were studying with an Apache shaman. So I studied with them for many years and did ceremony with them. And I learned energy work and meditation work. Oh, it was beautiful learning. And then yoga came into my life and more meditation and more yoga. But my career was very demanding. So I really I didn't want to, but I did have to spend time on the job and the family. So I retired from the corporate job. And in between there, sometime I would see craft in the sky. So I did see some UFOs and stuff like that, but I just couldn't figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And then, 3 years ago, I retired early and was so liberated. And then I just was so hungry to just dive back into awakening. And I came across a lot of things that I hadn't really learned before around contact with extraterrestrials, with ultra-dimensional stuff. And then I thought, well, the speaking in tongues thing, and then light language. So I started to speak again, and because I hadn't really done much of it for a long time. And then this group of people I got connected with in Colorado, and then we had this meeting, and I was led by Spirit to offer it to the group. And there were like 24, 25 people there, and all of them spoke light language with just a little facilitation that I offered them. And it was so mind-blowing. And I could go on, but I just want to finish by saying one more thing is that I believe everyone can do this and that it is almost a miraculous experience. And it's a beautiful experience of bringing the light into our 3D lives. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. And I can say, having spoken for 3 summers in a row now in Colorado, the people I've met in California, Arizona, and Colorado are equally, if you will, awake, aware, adept, are keenly hungry for information like this. What's next for us in this life on this planet? What is really going on in the higher dimensions? What are some of the truths that we can learn? Mm-hmm. The point that I'm trying to make is I was amazed at how highly awake and aware and keenly curious the people were in Colorado, not only in Evergreen and Lookout Mountain, but with Rick Nelson's Paranormal Research Group. I mean, 200 people showing up on a Wednesday night in the middle of the month. I was blown away. So to you, Lightstar and Jan, the people in Colorado are just amazing. And so I would
agree with that because I've lived in all 3 states that you mentioned. I'm from California and I lived in Colorado and Arizona, and I totally would agree with everything you said. It's definitely the states that definitely have their eyes open or opening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now from decidedly Northern California in the Mount Shasta area, Sophie Diamond, welcome.
Hi. Well, thank you. Can you see me and can you hear me okay?
Hearing you okay is just fine. So feel free, the floor is yours, so to speak.
Okay, I apologize I came on late. Was there a very specific question you wanted us to address?
Well, at this moment, your time is actually perfect because I kicked the beginning of this conversation off by introducing Chikara. And so she spoke, introduced herself to the listening audience. Lightstar spoke, introduced herself. Jan just finished introducing herself. So the floor is yours. You can tell people about how light language came into your life, how long you've been doing it, what are some of the nuances that you have to your own light language practice, your experience. So your timing's actually perfect. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, my soul name is Soha. My government name is Sophie Diamond.
There you go.
August 24th, 2012, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in a car accident, had a near-death experience. I went through the light. I died. I went on the other side. I had a complete soul transfer. I came into this body as a completely different soul, completely embodied the physical body with a new soul in it. The light language you've mentioned first happened to me when I was on the other side. Everything was communicated to me in a frequency and a vibration that was completely understood. And when I came back into this body, all I could do was take the frequencies that were inside here of communicating of what I had just come from, and it was a love. It was an extreme love, a love that you've never experienced on this physical earth, never. There's many forms of love, and the love that's over there is nothing on this earth to compare it. And the frequencies and the vibration and the light language that was coming out of me started that day when I went on the other side and came back into this body with a new soul. And there would be, to me, I felt it was normal what I was experiencing, but the people that knew the old soul, because they saw a body that was still Sophie Diamond, but what was coming out of that body was Soha. And she was now sitting on a rocking chair singing light language. And they were almost like codes. They were almost like if you think of taking from your soul and it giving back to source and source giving to you, it's almost a frequency of communicating back and forth is love and codes. And to me, I felt it was very normal. To them, there was like, what are you talking about? What is coming out of you? Stop doing that. It's scaring us.
Does any of this sound familiar to the rest of you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then I had to start slowly, because I was getting, I don't want to use the word abused. It's because they didn't understand. They were scared. And I understand from a very loving and compassionate heart. So then I had to go out to the woods, into a field by myself. I had to start quietly waiting till they all left the house to let it come out of me. The grandchildren that I was with, they loved it. These children that were not programmed, that were filled with, you're talking like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds that were not programmed, that I can take and hold in my hands. The beautiful gift, because now it's been almost 4.5, 5 years. If you can imagine 1-year-old, 9-month-old child in my hand, and I'm singing light language to this beautiful being. It's coming from me into that child and back, and then to see that child at 4.5 years old singing light language to me and back and forth, it was the most beautiful joy because they were open. They were with me and accepting. The parents were confused and scared. But and then I started finding groups that started, people would say, oh, you're singing light language. And I would say, oh, is that what it's called, an earth language? Because we don't have a language. That's an earth language we've created for this. It was just something that comes from within and back and forth, a vibration and a frequency. But if that's what we call it, an earth language, a light language, which is a good vocabulary word for it, I would completely agree. So then I found a group that started doing light language, and I'm very grateful for that. That's pretty well to simplify my story.
I'd like to delve into one aspect of it. And Chikara, I think you'll remember this from a conversation we had a couple of years ago. There were 4 or 5 women on the phone, and it was a conference. It was a pre-conference phone call. We were getting ready for the Transformational Shift Conference in October 2 years ago.
I remember.
And what we discovered in that conversation is that among all of you women, and you were all highly gifted, the majority of you all had near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And Sophie, so this is a key part of your story. Have you heard this as well from other people that you've spoken with in terms of new gifts emerging, whether it's light language or others?
I would say yes. Mind you, I'm connected with a few near-death experience people, a few, but definitely the few that I have been connected to, yes, they've been able to do, like, manifested with this awakening and light language. It just becomes more natural. And I did work with Raymond Moody. He, and I don't mean to jump back and forth, but also another gentleman, Eben Alexander. He explained to me the difference between an average near-death experience, and he said he kind of wished he worded it different when he coined the word back then, is there's those who have near-death experiences where you go into the tunnel and you see all the different relatives or whatnot saying, go back, and you get whatever information you've learned, or adapted to, and you come back into the body. There's just a few of us that have actually gone through the light and went on this completely other side of a completely different dimension. If you think this sky and the stars and the planets and even the sun that we see right now, there is something even greater than that. And so there's a few of us that have gone through that light, experienced what we've experienced, and then we've come back through another portal. And it's when we come back, it's not like giving birth when your mother gives birth to your physical body and you come out of the portal, let's just say, of that body part. This is coming through the birthing canal of a portal that's from a very cosmic universe. It was an instant birth through the cosmic universe. It wasn't a birth through a mother body, a human body.
Sophie, would you say that the soul fractal that is occupying the Sophie Diamond body today, that soul fractal has braided itself with the original soul in that body, or did the original soul leave altogether?
The original soul left altogether, completely left. Now, I hear people saying the braiding thing. There's part of me, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm trying to take Earth language here, like Akashi records, because there's still the body carries a DNA in here, because I'm dealing with this physical body. I can go back, and it took a while, but it was like an Akashi records. I was going back into records of people saying, well, this is what the Sophie Diamond did. Oh, this is the clothes the Sophie Diamond wore. I had no connection. It was more like it was just me reading a book and hearing someone tell it, like listening to a tape. And then I went back to further Akashi records, where maybe in 1928 was one of the last times this body had reincarnated. And then it was going back further, let's say to Cleopatra with the cousin. And then it was going back further with a very, very indigenous society. So it kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So that part comes in, but the actual Sophie Diamond, I have no connection to. I had, and I use the word had now because I can go back and forth between this. I had a husband, 4 adult children, only 1 grandchild, and then 6 came during my time of the new soul in here. I had no memory or no, and I even don't want to use the word memory, but no relationship to them, except that I heard my guide saying, work with the family, this is who you've been put into. I was like looking at them more like, I don't say strangers, but it's like, I felt like the stranger.
Mm.
You know?
I've heard, by the way, I heard a similar story, a very similar story, when Yvonne Palermo told her story on stage. And the facts of her story are very, very similar to yours, where she went out into deep space in the cosmos and saw galaxies and star systems and interacted with a number of cosmic beings. Completely changed her life. Chikara, Lightstar, and any comments on what Sophie's been through?
I can't.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead, Chikara. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead. I'll go after you.
Oh, I just wanted to reiterate, I have not had a near-death experience, so I can't actually explain, that yes, I've had that experience, but I have had some working with other people that have had the same experiences that Sophie has. And so some of their descriptions and everything that you had just said about feeling kind of the stranger, and it's very challenging for the new soul that's just come in, because they're having to readjust to an existing life that they don't have a connection to. And so the people that I've dealt with a lot of times have a very, they can go into very deep depression because it's very hard, and they miss home, but they don't exactly understand how to get back to that home, and yet you're here, and
Right.
yet you have a mission, so they have a definitely strong mission and they know it, but there's definitely that emotional feeling of having that discord. So, and I honor your story, Sophie. It's just very fascinating. And I feel for a lot of people that are going through that situation.
Who was just speaking?
Oh, this is Lightstar.
Yeah, Lightstar. Two things. I don't feel, and I've been asked this before, absolutely no depression at all. What I do experience, and it took me, and it still probably is there, I cannot understand why and how they cannot love.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I come into this family, I just completely felt, and it's like as if you can imagine this beautiful gift that's been given to them of divine love, and I see just love and everything, and then all of a sudden, because I'm on planet Earth, or in this world, and all of a sudden I'm experiencing like, whoa, there's judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, there's hatred. And it's like, I just was kind of like, I'm not shocked or stunned, but I wasn't sure what that was at the beginning. I couldn't.
It's surprising. I've always found it surprising how easily people go into fear and judgment and anger.
Yeah.
That's sort of their go-to buttons for a large percentage of
This is
the population.
Chikara.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. And thank you, Sophie, for sharing your experience. It's really, I think, very important for people that are awakening at various timelines to know that, everybody's doing this a little bit differently, and we're all kind of figuring this out as we go along. And just wanted to mention quickly, when I was between 8 and 12 months old, I had chemical pneumonia, got very sick, and went to the hospital. And I had very profound experiences. That's when the star people would come to me. And my sister was a candy striper at the time and said she would come visit me. And she said I was just entertaining myself all the time. This other woman later said, it was very intuitive, said that that's when the Arcturians would take me away to these ships and train me and teach me these things. And then later, up until I was about 7, I had grand mal seizures, and I would completely black out, and I would go to other star systems, and I remember it very clearly. And so, but what's beautiful about the way that I work with all these different guides that come to me is a couple things I wanted to share, because they're actually like standing behind me pushing these messages through. But one is they teach me how this works, how, everything from our relationship to our star ways or our star beings all the way back to the beginning of time, and also how the star people work, star, earth, and whatever guides we're working with. And one of the things they explain is, if you look at a lot of different channelers, everybody's doing a little bit differently. So, Bashar closes his eyes and channels. Somebody else will speak a language. Somebody will look right at you and that kind of thing. So they're showing me through my own experience of different ways of doing this. Like for me, when they come through. I'm completely conscious, but I kind of shift over a little bit. But it kind of opens a space for this flow to come through, and I'm observing it as it's happening. And even the way that they are integrating in our physical bodies, they're showing me that, like you said, some people are braided, which means like a higher dimensional existence of themselves, or another star entity kind of comes down and mixes with their human body or their light body or soul system.
Right.
But the other way is some people come in fully formed. I was actually told I was Arcturian in physical form, and among other things. But this idea of this hybrid idea, it's not just ETs seeding women that have physical babies that way, but it's also this blending of many, if you want to call it this, essences that we've been in many lifetimes, or layers of us. We're all multidimensional. So sometimes I will meet people, or I'll get intuitive messages that they are very conscious or completely unconscious of their star connection, but it's in their body blueprint, and beings can come as guides around them. Because what I've been taught is everybody has seven guides that are aspect of yourself in different dimensions, including the starways and in the earth and that kind of thing. But they can come within a person or behind them or through them to channel messages, for example. But sometimes they'll blend with the body and stay there. Sometimes they're visitors. Sometimes they're an aspect of you or your higher self. So it's really interesting for me to see all these different angles that these star people actually teach me how this is happening separately for people. And I just wanted to mention also with the light language, what Sophie was explaining about the language being a non-earth language. I'm getting lots of messages about, if you will, the architecture of the language itself. And they say there's a universal language that every being that's in form, whatever form, could be a gaseous state or a physical state in the ground or a star person. There's a language of love, ultimately, that we all speak. Mm-hmm. And so when I can say something in light language and somebody doesn't have any idea the constructs of the words that I'm using, like a sentence structure, but they feel it. It's a light and a sound and a vibrational exchange that goes across. So there's some universal language that, and what I've learned, especially with this chief, is there's universal law of spiritual and universal laws of creation that the star people know, that he's actually, somebody's actually found these symbols that he's working with on the bar at Roswell, which is from one of the crash ships. So there are principles and languages and structures of, I guess, if you will, packets of downloads that people are getting in different ways. And then they also show me that each person uniquely has their own vibrational language. So that's why people are speaking these languages differently. But they're coherent enough to feel and understand because they're working at all these different levels. So I just wanted to share that a little bit. And the one last thing Sophie was talking about, not understanding why people feel the way that they do here. They show me that this Earth is a really dense dimension. So when we, as star energies, our higher selves, come down into this physical body, it's really hard to be here, especially with all the other stuff that's going on now. Are deliberately architected to keep us separate from our consciousness. And what they're showing is what's happening with the solar flares that are going on, the changes of the Earth's electromagnetic spectrum and Schumann frequency, and all of us are now awakening to this time. And what it's really doing is triggering all of our emotions because they have to be released and processed. But just one last thing, they showed me that before we came into physical form, whether we've been here once or many times, we've chosen to take this on to help the Earth evolve and ascend at this time. And this is what's happening, is people are becoming more conscious of it. But this is why it's so hard, especially for the kids that come in, because they're fully blueprinted with these new ways, if you will. But they're seeing that the structure has to break down. And so anytime you have a trigger of somebody's emotional body or how they feel about something or a thought process, these are the old systems that are changing. But this is one of the reasons we have to work here. And they say that this ascension time is not just that we're going to, dissolve and be airy and just be air or something, that this is truly our higher selves and our star waves coming physically, fully formed into a physical body. So it's about the combination of both. And so everything is, we're right where we're supposed to be, and all this activity is happening. But the language, too, also helps people remember who they are. Anytime, I'm sure any one of you speak that.
Absolutely. That's great. This is Jan. Can I jump in? I'm so excited.
Yeah, please.
Okay, great. And for people who are listening to this program and this conversation right now, whether it's today or another day or any time, you may be called to this too. And I really think anybody can channel light language, that we're just designed to do it. And Tolec, with your permission, can I share a little light language right now for the listeners?
Oh, please.
Yay.
Absolutely. This program is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, and I'll keep it brief, but listeners and anyone listening, just real briefly, what you're going to hear is a language, and I'm not making it up in my head. It's just coming from my heart, and it's a lot of sounds. And what it is, it's energy and vibration and information from another dimension. So it can, as you listen with an open heart and a receptive frame of mind, it can heal you. You can be triggered and also activated to your own light language. And just know that this comes from me to you with a lot of love, right from my heart. So I'm just going to speak, and please be aware of your energy and your response. If you see colors or symbols, or just pay attention to your energy field as I begin to speak. Okay. Ishoya rasaya la shantaya la sepereshteti, ela kastaya la shonda baya sanda, ala shtatia la sharapitite, ela kutsoya daya shanta meza, eontustu ekechete, ela payatsayasha, ayanto shorokosto pereteo tuchuya la sante te pite, ela kapara shataya la santa pachite, ela katua. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Oh, you're welcome. I just felt someone needs to hear some light language here. Let's get it going.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the other ladies if you guys want to share a little bit, and I'd love to share some too.
Yes, someone else share some, please.
Jona maikoma okona shea ko kaya kana opaya ko okona aya kaya kapoya shidika poya kaya.
Beautiful.
Who is that? Is that Sophie?
You can call me by my soul name if you want to call me by the government name. That's okay.
Beautiful.
Say the name again. That clicks in, huh?
And your name again, your non-government name, Soph?
It's Soha.
Soha.
Soha. Thank you, Soha.
It's like soul heart.
Soha.
Ah.
Soha.
I got to plug in my computer here because it's just like ready to die on me.
Chikara.
Lightstar, you want to say anything?
I guess
I'll go.
We're
Go ahead.
going around the table here with light language here.
Yes, please.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'll just chime in here, and I'm going to bring through a little bit stronger energy perhaps, but it's from Syrian energy that's coming through at the moment. Kilakan este peshas akalik zeni uplak samashi fetenas beshtenil lakik al shetek viniostok al al mashek vadias al aki perean hal alashek hal mestutok uleasho bakal est bashiak letiria kal mesturak.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So a couple guides are standing behind me, and I might just sample a couple things, and then usually I see who's coming through as I'm speaking, and the messages will come later. But yeah, this is what I'd like to share. Shuna kaido kaido shingi asamo totora kain toshang usu kiki kido kai toshani go sakaninu warakine. Usakinin Wurakan was Shamako, did Wurakin was Shaku, the Wasaka, washing, Kiki Wurakin was Manuraki, Wurakat, Wadakwata. In Surakin was Shaku, Wurakin was a Sakai, set it west. Achtenu sakainu la boshte kine asaki ushuna. Asenu la kaitushin. Asuka titadula ma ushiki titadula ma. Anshi ki titadua taine asakundua shine. It was like a combination little sampler.
Wonderful. Thank you.
There's an Arcturian, there was Sasquatch, Sasquatch energy. There was kind of like a Magdalene Ein-Sof, like the Sophia energy coming through. That's why I keep saying Sophie, Sophia.
Okay.
There was a kind of divine feminine aspect of creator and little white buffalo calf woman kind of, I don't know, they all kind of interchange sometimes. So it was just a blessing and love, and they were kind of introducing themselves and saying, it's a beautiful time to be alive. This is amazing, and we have to get real conscious right now who we are, what we're doing, and just have fun. They keep saying, have fun with it.
Light Star, let's talk. When you were speaking, this has never happened to me before, in listening to Light Star language, I started to get chills from the base of my head, like the top of my spine, all the way down to my toes. Really, sort of like those rippling waves of chills. Like, this is interesting. I've heard it. I've heard it when I've visited other dimensions, but I've never had that kind of physical reaction before in the conscious.
Well, it's very, thanks for sharing that, because that's a great point about when people listen to light language from anyone who's speaking it, depending on, whatever, it doesn't matter what language, but I do know that everybody has a different response to the different languages. And it could be something that is activating you right now, or waking you, or into your DNA. Messages. I personally, this is just my own personal thing. When I'm providing light language, I used to do a lot of interpreting, like what it means. But what I have found is that my guides just personally started to tell me to not do that for a bit, because they wanted people just to have their own experiences. And because I found this to be true, is that I may speak a language to come through to 4 people. I'm just using this as an example. 4 people in the room, same language I'm speaking, and 4 different interpretations and 4 different experiences. So then I started to realize, well, it's not my place to be necessarily telling people what exactly this is meaning for them, only to share enough to share the overall message is okay, but then allow people to have their own experiences and their own interpretations of it as well. Because that's what I find the beauty of light language is, for each person to unfold or unblossom in whatever way is meant for them, and to have them share that experience may be different for someone else that heard the same thing. So it's very...
That's so great. This is Jan, and I've noticed that this unique thing about how it's customized and unique to the person is so true. And sometimes if I'm in a group or I'm with a person and I'll say, would you like a blessing? Would you like a light language blessing? And if they say yes, and then I give them just a quick, get ready kind of thing. Usually the language that comes out from me is different, like completely different for every single person. And like I said before, it does not come from my brain. It comes from my heart, from another dimension. And I just think it's such a wonderful thing. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this is what I've been pondering something lately about how hungry people are for awakening and for an awareness of our full selves, our non-physical as well as our physical self. And light language is such a gift that everyone can feel and express and do, to be in touch with that non-physical. It's like a miraculous thing. Like, people are like, oh, paranormal is so exciting and fun and all this non-physical stuff. Well, speak light language and you've got it any time of day, any second, and you can channel light. It's so exciting. Like, hello, there it is.
Oh,
this is Chikara. Sorry. You there?
Okay. This is
This
so
is Chikara. I just wanted to mention that what they're showing me is as we're ascending into these higher frequencies, our much higher sensibilities are coming online, and that's the light, sound, and vibration aspect of the light language, and so this is helping us kind of unplug from the 3D matrix, because we're not seeing, thinking, hearing, or feeling things literally. So they explain, like, I really thank Light Star for sharing that message too, because I was feeling, I know the Syrians are really connected to a lot of Egyptian energies here, and I'm also in Sedona. And when you were speaking, I get pictures, and I was seeing these codes coming from the rock through you and outwards, which is really beautiful, because there's a real strong Egyptian, Tibetan, crystalline structure here that's opening up. But just this feeling that it's as we're speaking light language, we're also activating people's DNA codes and of their codes of remembrance of why they're really here. So it's part physical, and it's part etheric. It has a lot to do. Over and over again, I'm getting all these messages about the etheric blueprint, how we're changing our body systems from carbon to crystal, which is allowing us to have these higher consciousness that Jan was just talking about, and these it's really a heart feeling, and that's when we go back into our center, we can really tune in with that. But it's amazing to see how people, like you said, kind of interpret or feel these in different ways. And as we're speaking it, it's almost like it's helping them remember these other sensibilities that we're literally creating as we're going along right now. It's like there's no timeline anymore. There's no real physical 3D. We keep this structure in place because most people, like I said, didn't get the memo. They don't really know that we're going through this time. But as we're doing it, more and more people are evolving. It's just getting lighter and easier. So it's beautiful to see how this is unfolding with the language, with our bodies, with the world. It's just really amazing. So light language is like a stimulator for that.
This is Soha.
Okay.
A couple things I want to share is I was in Peru last year for like a month, and I was at a coffee shop, and I was in Iquitos by the jungle area, and a lot of people there understand and carry a lot of this energy that we speak of, and it was kind of interesting. I was sitting at this coffee shop, and all of a sudden this man comes and sits next to me, and he says to me, share me your soul language. That's how he called it. He didn't call it light language. So he starts right there in the coffee shop. I said to him, well, I'm looking at him, and I said to him, well, show me what you're talking about. So right there in the coffee shop, he starts singing to me light language. He started to share with me his soul language. And then he asked me to share mine, and I went ahead and did it. And it was really beautiful, because here I am in a coffee shop in South America, and it was considered normal and okay. Before I lived in Shasta, I was living in Michigan. That was where I was. And there it was like I had mentioned, I had to hide in the woods or out in the field. The time came that I had to leave Michigan, and this is why I came to Shasta, because there's a lot of people here, just like I'm sure like in Arizona, in other parts that you had mentioned in the U.S., it's acceptable here, and I feel very happy that I can be my true self here. And there's a part of me, and I don't know how to put this in words, but with my light language, there was times that people would say to me, can you tell me that in English? Can you interpret that to me? And I've kind of and I kind of call it 3 layers. There's a layer of me that when I'm around people, I will allow so much of my light language to come out, and then I help interpret it to them, because I kind of already know where they're at, in a sense of how much can they take in. And then I kind of go to the next level where maybe I'm with a group of other people who are completely in understanding of light language. And then there's a third level where it's just me and source. And that's extremely sacred light language, that it's just me and source. But that's how I kind of go through these 3 different layers of light language that I've started to feel comfortable with, because there is people that don't understand it, and they're hungry to know, what am I speaking? What am my frequencies are, or what am I explaining? But then there is other people, like the other lady had mentioned, where you've got 4 people, and each one is going to take it in a certain way, you know, but it all seems to be the same in that. But
I had Soha. I love that name. I actually completely can relate to the story when you were saying about the original or soul language. I actually tend to have a term that I started to call it mother tongue. So when I say a lot of people, everybody can actually speak their mother tongue, because everyone has that language. It may be different or may sound different individually from different people. But I like to just say it's your mother tongue, it's your language, it's your soul language in that way. And that basically, yes, everyone can speak that. Now, when it comes to people that maybe speak multiple languages, like myself or all of us, or, you know, people that are bringing these light languages as practitioners, perhaps they have a different level in that a lot of us are like starseed ambassadors, and we on other multidimensional levels are actually doing these jobs that do require, you know, I sometimes have this vision of one aspect of myself as in Star Trek. We the person that plays Deanna Troi, and then there's a person that plays Lieutenant Uhura on, you know, the older Star Trek. And if you blended those 2 together, that's always what I've had a role as, is kind of this mixture of the 2. So there's some of it that is interpretation, some of it is for diplomatic purposes, some of it's for healing, and how I've chosen to bring that particular role down here in this incarnation or this existence is different, because I'm using it for healing. So it doesn't always translate as your role that you're, you know, we're all doing these roles out there too, not to mention what we're doing here as our 3D jobs, but we have so many dimensional roles. And then how we actually bring those down here into this incarnation may be different. And that's what I've seen it happen with myself and other people. And so some people will ask, well, can I speak multiple languages? And I'd say, well, yeah, you might be able to. Not everybody is in that same role, but if you have a role in another dimension, then yes, absolutely.
Right. Can I reflect on that for a minute?
Sure.
This is a question for everybody. I mean, I'm trying to think the words I want to use. If it's the word shape-shifting, it's like certain sound, you know, light language comes out of me. And again, like you said, it depends. Are we healing? Are we enlightening? Is there what the energies around comes through for us to, like a vessel coming through to express? But there's times where at one point I was able to listen to the light language coming out of me, and it was kind of a different shift that happened where certain, like, if it's tongues, or not even tongues, but other languages, and someone said, oh, I picked up some Oriental or Mongolian in you, or I picked up that you're speaking Navajo, not Navajo, Dakota Indian, you know, their language, or Russian, and it's kind of interesting, or even a little bit of Egyptian. And it's kind of interesting because it's almost like I'm able to, and I wonder if the rest of you can doing this too, but shift into those different light languages of these different languages that are from the past. And it's just really interesting that this is just another form of light language that comes through. And then there's this part that's just so deep in the soul of just the gratitude and thankfulness and love of this wholeness with the creation and source. And that just, it's almost like an implantation that's like a completely piece of me weaved in and out with this frequency and vibration. And it's just, it's such, and there's no words not even a light language where can I describe it. I cannot take from what's up there and turn it into earth language, because then it becomes earth language. There's not a word I can even describe. It's just this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're all just like going.
That's like beautiful.
Love. There's so much love.
Sometimes you have to also have the question of where do we think that all the languages actually came from down here on Earth? There was a lot of roots were in this from the stars. So light language is actually the root of a lot of these languages. So I think that there are similarities to some of them.
Yes, and the beautiful thing, this is just coming to me right now, is it was always there. It was always there. It's just now it awakened. It's that light language, the soul speaking through us, the vibration and the frequencies, they were always there, but they were just capped. And now it's like almost like an egg, cracked open and it's awakened, and we're finally allowing this to come through us, and that. So just...
Something occurs to me, I don't know about all of you, but I read and look around for any information about it, and there was a study done, a scientific study on light language. They called it speaking in tongues, but in 2005, 2006 by a Dr. Andrew Newberg at the University of Pennsylvania. And what really interested me about this, and maybe some listeners who are kind of science-minded might be interested in this and might want to look it up, is that, they hooked them up to I forget what it's called, like called it a SPECSIMA machine where they could measure the brain waves. And first they would look at meditators, like the Buddhist meditators that are very masterful, and the frontal lobe would light up when they were meditating, and that's the language of higher thought and language. The language center is in the frontal lobe, and when meditators meditate, that lights up. But when the light language speakers would speak, that would be completely quiet. So the science shows us that when you speak light language, the language center is completely quiet.
Yeah. I saw that.
Cool.
Isn't that fascinating?
Study. I was fascinated by that same thing. I saw it and I was like, wow, that says a lot.
Yeah, it's a great study. I wish they would do more just, for people who need to learn that way and say, you know what, this is a real phenomena, and it's not from the language center. This is coming from somewhere else, people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, one of the things, this is Chikara, one of the things I learned is that our bodies are coded with all of these basically symbols, but they're not symbols as we think about them. They're just energy, frequency signatures. And when this light language is spoken, it stimulates those. It's almost like the junk DNA gets restrung or moved around or something. And one of the things I learned is that, every dot of light in our body is just a photon of light. And when a pulse comes from the sun, or an interaction with a person, or even if we're interacting with nature or something, there's just a balancing, rebalancing of energy, but it's all light. And I think what happens when we do this light language is it helps people get back into what you're saying, this part of their brain or the part of their higher consciousness, that everything is just vibration. Mm-hmm. And it does affect and stimulate. When you guys were all talking, I was seeing pictures and colors and forms, and my body was moving, and just energy around my body. And it's really beautiful, because the message I'm getting is that, like you said, the mother tongue, there is one universal language that's the essence of the start of, for lack of a better word, all of creation, that has kind of trickled down to all these cultures, all these different places in our physical world right now, and it's all coming back together. And somehow they're showing me when we shift into this higher consciousness, it's just immediately understood. You were talking about the Akashic records. We're tuning into our own Akashic records of remembering. We're tuning into these higher vibrational frequencies and all these star people, earth people, elementals, and that kind of thing. It's all just kind of like the door is just wide open right now. And it's just really fascinating to see how it's affecting people. Mm-hmm. And just conscious awareness in general is really opening up very, very quickly right now. It's fascinating.
Yeah, agreed. I think
for you too, and for all of us, I'm sure.
I think it's interesting to see how, all of us and people that are starting to come forward as well, even listeners that are interested in light language and starting to come forward with it. And then how it came to be to actually bring it to the world, because it's not something, at least for myself, I was not at all sure about this when I first did my very first video, my first YouTube video. I was thinking, okay, I'm either going to make myself look like the tin hat people, you're just crazy, or, people are just going to understand it. And I didn't know what to expect when I first put this out many years ago. I had no idea, but I did because I was called to do it. I talk about this a lot when this wasn't necessarily a passion of mine, but it was a calling, and it was something I was really asked through Spirit, will you have the courage to stand up and do this? And so I was like, well, I don't know if I have the courage, but I guess I'm going to do it anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
And this is where, and to my surprise, that first video of mine got so many views and responses and comments, and all positive, that really made me really, and as I've been doing this, more activations through my YouTube channel and seeing the responses, people are open to this. People are opening and open to receiving and to learning and to growing in a way that we couldn't even have made any sense out of it. That's why I think it's so beautiful, because it doesn't make any sense. It takes us out of 3D. It takes us out of the analytical mind and into the spirit.
Right.
So
it's a beautiful way of connecting them to love, because they're experiencing and they're feeling that frequency of love coming from the light language to them. And this is another source, another way of helping them to open up their awakening process. This is such a beautiful gift that all of us, and even more of us that have this light language, we are helping. We are truly helping to awaken more and more people just from them listening to the light language. It's opening up them inside here. It's beautiful.
It's so hot. That's great. What just occurs to me, this is Jan, is the ego needs to step aside. And I don't know about
absolutely, I agree.
I don't know about you all, but it was hard for me to come out of the closet with this, because my family and friends and the corporate people, this is hard because you open yourself to being called crazy and weird and all of that. And it really takes a lot of nerve, a lot of courage to say, you know what, I speak light language. And it's only in the last year or two that I'm really beginning to say that. And it was a lot for me to do that. It was hard.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there, that you kind of have to tell your ego to shut up and step back. And this is my heart, and I'm going to come forward. Source is calling me to be true to my heart. And this is real. It's not made up. This is a beautiful thing. And it's happening. It's coming out. It's being born in the world.
Yeah. This is so hot talking. It kind of reminds me of allowing ourselves to be that beautiful, innocent, loving child that we all are, It also reminds me of a funny incident that happened. I don't know if it was the grocery store, but this will happen to me quite often. But I was just, especially if I start moving, I don't know, something to do with my body moving, the light language starts, because my body's starting to pick up the frequency. I start to move, and all of a sudden the light language is coming out. So it's like, Lord and behold, if I'm at the grocery store or Best Buy. It's like the one time my son tapped me on the shoulder and says, Mom, you can't do this.
Yeah, but in Berryvale, that's normal.
That's so true.
In Sedona, that's pretty normal.
Yeah, that's right.
This is one of the reasons why I love being in Sedona.
And it's
I just wanted to share.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's okay. Go ahead.
This is Chikara. I just wanted to share. I was really encouraged to do my creative work, but doing my spirit work in the corporate world was like, you know, I was really under wraps, and I realized the message I got that a lot of us who have been here in physical form or in our star realms have had a lot of protection that we've had to uphold because it wasn't safe. There was a time when we would have been really persecuted, especially women. That's why women that are really in tune with the Magdalene energy and the Ein Sof and that kind of thing, you know, there's fear to come out. And, you know, I work with a lot of indigenous elders, and there's everyone, all these, all the different tribes have stories and experiences with star people. And they've been very reluctant for lots of different reasons by, you know, having been persecuted until they changed the freedom of spiritual expression law in 1978. Until then, you know, they couldn't talk about their practices or their ways. So this is really, you're absolutely right. I feel about dropping the ego and getting yourself out there. But the message I'm getting is it's a safe time now because this is really who we are, really, truly. And we have to do this and play around with it and experience it. When I first started speaking, my friend said, I think you channel. And she gave me a piece of paper before I actually knew what I was doing. And I was doing this crazy, you know, scribble. And then I was like, you know, it just didn't come. And then all of a sudden it came. But the other thing is not everybody needs to speak the language. It can come from dancing and singing. If you're cooking, you can cook with, you know, it's energy and colors and art forms and music and sound. So, you know, it's just beautiful to see how people are evolving into these higher kind of artistic abilities or intellectual abilities that are really out of these other structures. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I thank you, Chikara. This is Lightstar, and I completely agree with this creativity, this wave of creativity that is coming out for people. And it allows everybody to share their own gifts and their own unique abilities in their own unique ways. So
and they're really multidimensional too.
Yes,
a lot of people are
very much so.
like you and I. You know,
yeah,
sound,
they can
light,
come out
vibration.
and we see this happening with people where it comes out in not just, you know, they're speaking it, but artwork and doing blessings and in ceremonies and, you know, even in for marriages and for deaths and for you know, all different types of situations that it's coming forth. So, you know, we see the blessings of water, you know, so that it changes and enhances your water and your food. And I think we're going to see even way more unique ways of them coming out that we don't even know yet.
Yeah. I just want to share one more thing because I actually have to jump on to another activity that I'm doing. But, you know, there are people that are coming up to me now and speaking water. And there are friends of mine that speak dolphin. And they speak, you know, these sentient being languages. I have friends that speak bee language, very high vibrational. And he's actually guided by the bees, gotten visions to do this really ancient acupuncture. And he speaks bee, he, you know, other friends go, you know, it comes out in many forms. And the star people tell me, you know, each star, it's like tribes or different languages in our world. Each star group has their own signature and the way of doing that. And just one of the things I wanted to bring out is the Sasquatch. When you're talking about kind of coming out of, we're all coming out of our spiritual closets, really. And making ourselves known, but we're also, there's no blueprint for this. There's no, who knows what's going to happen. So we're actually creating something new, which is really about manifesting and creation. So these languages that we're speaking, you have to allow for it to just flow, and then it just does. I find if I think about it, it shuts down immediately. And what I wanted to mention about the Sasquatch is I go to this spiritual and psychic Sasquatch conference run by Kelly and Kawani Lapis-Oritis, and this is going to be the third year this time in Washington State, and it was so beautiful to see these grown men and women, but really men also, talking very openly for the first time with their connections with the Sasquatch, who I see as star beings that shapeshift in dimension and stuff, but talking about our own experiences with our relationship with our light language. It's also people relating to these other dimensions, other beings and everything, and it's safe now. you know, to talk about, you know, oh, I saw this little star person in the corner, and some were scary and some were interesting, and, you know, or hearing visions or seeing beings kind of come around. And I think this is all happening because these dimensions are opening. And the star children, you know, when I go to the store, they're all telepathing with me big time.
That's
and
true.
and I see, you know, energy forms and the kids and stuff. So hey, Tolec, I have to jump off the call, but can I share one more thing before I go?
Yes, go ahead, and thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and I really want to thank you ladies for following your truth. And it always feels weird when we do this language and kind of feel this out, and I really honor who you are, and each one of you distinctly. I think it's so important in this time. Your individual expression is so important, and I learned a lot from you, and I still feel those energies. So I really think it's wonderful when we can really honor each other, because there's no competition in this. You know, it's really beautiful to just you know, I love how it's coming out uniquely for each one of you. But I just want to mention two things real quick, and then and thank you for giving me a moment. But I'm going to be speaking at this Star Knowledge Conference in Roswell, New Mexico, March 17th and 18th with Chief Golden Light Eagle and a lot of other people that are talking about the starways. And then also, if anybody's interested. And then at Serpent Mound, we're going to do a light language panel, which I'm really, really excited about. A couple key people there. And we're going to just talk light language and teach people more about that. So that's the Serpent Mound Seed Gathering, I believe, on 2018. But I think that would be really wonderful for people to experience that. And I also just want to mention, if people want to know more about what I'm doing, you can go to Chikara, Shakara, Tosha, TOSHA.com. And I also offer drawings and client sessions, and would love to talk to anyone if you're called this way. But I just want to say a star message, and then I'm going to jump off the call. This is for all of you, from my heart to yours.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Chikara.
Shukra kai tuashine, asuma mo shiki tetu wala kai, antoko ji wala kai no shango to saki no wala kai tuashime no saki, ni shukote situ wala kai ne. I honor all of you, and I'd love to spend more time talking star language together too. So,
All right.
thank you, Tolec.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, Chikara.
Chikara, we'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Chikara will also be speaking at my conference this coming September, the Great Awakening Messages from Our Galactic Family, which will happen September the 28th through the 30th. Lightstar, you're going to be at a conference here locally in Sedona next month or so also?
Yeah, that's going to be the Sedona Cosmic Awakening. That's on April 20th and 21st at the Creative Life Center. And we have a lot of different speakers there, though. Chief Golden Light Eagle, Clifford Mahooty, Stands with Bear, my partner, all Rion, a bunch of Thunderbeat, a bunch of people from this area as well. And I'll be doing some star language. I don't have as much time, so it'll basically just be doing some activation. But that's going to be exciting and really fun. We did it last year, too. We had sold out. It was a huge event. So anyone that wants to come to that, plus you get to see Sedona. So who doesn't want to come here?
There you go. There you go. And if people would like to reach you, Lightstar, how do they do that?
Oh, I am at lightstarcreations.com. So that's LIGHTSTAR and creations with an S on the end.com.
Okay. And Jan and Sophie, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap up this afternoon?
I'm just very, very grateful that Creator has brought me to each and every one of you, and I would love, and I anticipate that we will see more of each other. This was very beautiful to connect here. A lot of gratitude, thankfulness. I'll kind of end it with a little story. It was Wednesday. I went up to the mountain, and there was three and a half animals that I encountered. The first one was the footprints of it looked like a turkey or a pheasant, and I laid some seed because I knew the snow was coming, and just like us humans, we kind of prepare extra food. We go to the grocery store to get ready for the snowstorm. And then I went another section in the forest, and it's my sacred garden, and I noticed the bear paws were at that spot earlier in the morning looking for food where I normally put food, and I sprinkled the seeds across there, and then at some moment I went into a very deep light language. Me, the forest, the nature, the wind, everything. I was by myself with creation. I just allowed all that light language to come through me. And then there was a moment, I had tears coming down my face. It was just of love. This is love and gratitude and this oneness and how much I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there. And then all of a sudden there was silence. And then from the one end, I heard this bird, but it was above and beyond a normal bird. And I would say that bird was light languaging back to me. It was vibrating a sound coming out of its beak, its vessel, and returning this beautiful love back to me. It was just so beautiful. And then I finally went a little bit further down another spot in the woods, and I looked, and there was 2 beautiful deer. They were just so beautiful with their eyes looking, and it was language at that point that was just silence. It was a silence with our eyes. We communicated, and I also respected them, for that was their home deep in the forest there. A part of me wanted to go and follow them, but there was this frequency that I just felt love, but I also had to allow them their permission, their territory, I have this home that I live in, this building that I'm in, but there was all these different forms of communication. It was the footprints, it was the smell, it was the visual of the trees, it was the eyes of the deer, it was the sound of the bird, and it was me. We all communicated each other on this planet Earth, even though we go into our higher dimensions and go with our star families too. It's just wanted to share that with you too. I enjoy that very much, and to connect constantly with the nature and Mother Earth here too. It's very beautiful.
Sophie, it sounds like there were a lot of sacred moments in that experience out in the woods, out in the forest.
Yes, definitely.
That was beautiful, Soha. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just my final thoughts would be for the listeners listening and for all of you, that these are wonderful times, and we're all sovereign, amazing beings, and everyone has their unique, beautiful gift. And I encourage anyone who would like to learn more about light language to reach out to any of us here, and we'd love to help you or other teachers and other people out there. And it's just a great time to express your gifts, your light, your energy. And I do have a website, but it's not esoteric. It's just kind of my website if you want to reach me. It's sageflower.weebly.com. So it's sageflower.weebly.com, and I'd be very happy to speak to anyone. So thank you, Tolec, for having us. This is wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Tolec.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yes.
You're very welcome. Sophie, Soha, will you, I know that Mount Shasta is a very busy place in terms of gatherings and meetings. You had talked about some potential plans to come to Arizona. Will you be here anytime in the near future?
As of right now, I can't answer that. I don't know. I was supposed to have been there this week, but my bus that was supposed to take me to the airlines, they canceled their schedule, and then my airlines I was late for it, so I would have been there in Arizona right now. And
yeah, it's okay. I just wondered if you had made any additional plans so that we could notify the people around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just keep praying and allow the Spirit to bring me there. But
So-
yeah, I do want to meet you and Donna Metz, and you and Donna and all the others that are on the line today too. You're always welcome to come here to Mount Shasta and visit me. I have a guest room. My door is always open for you all.
Oh,
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. How
Very
sweet.
kind.
You're welcome in that.
Yeah, and I'm sure if whenever you would choose to come to the Greater Sedona area, there are enough of us that are doing this. It's deeply committed spiritual work. We open our hearts, our homes, so we'll find a place for you, one way or another.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tolec, for having everybody on here. I think it was really beautiful to have this connection and to share and just to experience. And I just really want to honor everybody, and including, Chikara, even though she's not on the call, but she's here in spirit. So we're actually really all connecting in ways now that, thanks to you and things like this, we actually get to meet each other, because I didn't know the other two ladies. So it was really an honor to meet you and see what you guys are doing as well. And I just want to wish everybody out there lots of love and blessings from my heart. And I would like to do kind of an ending light language, if you guys would not mind that.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to kind of bring through something from the Andromedan, since you're like Andromedan Council. So I just like to bring through some Andromedan energy to kind of close here. Kiwia sana heshi hela tahike, somahiwe kani atidia sanati. Ishtiana ake ewa sahania shahamaki, veso natalia antitiara kani, sohoshamaki kivenia ta anti, se ewa shana taeni ki kenia tasamia.
Oshana ikopoya. Na e ko'a na a shana a zohasha zana o zohara ma e ko'a naya koya shia.
Well, ladies, thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I can't even think of a wrap-up that would top what you have done. So I'll simply say, from Tolec for the Andromeda Council, Chikara Tosha, Lightstar, Jan DeSanti, Soha, thank you so much for joining together and for sharing your gifts and your knowledge and your wisdom with our listening audience. It was a real blessing today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Have a great weekend.
I love you all.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Don't make me cry. I don't want to leave you guys.